Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. My name is Julia, and I'm one of the facilitators in the Spokane Sangha. Today, I'd like to share with you a sentiment of loving kindness. And let's see which ones. I thought I had selected one. Let me see if I can find it. For those of you who are new and unfamiliar, I often begin our practice with these sentiments of metta, loving kindness, and they're little mantras that I write on the backs of cards. And recently I've had them printed and I've made them available for a dana offering, and you can read all about it on our website. Look at this one. Isn't that so pretty? This one reads, "May my life be a constant dawning of grace." May my life be a constant dawning of grace. I'm so happy to be here today, friends. For the month of July, in the Spokane Sangha, we are exploring the third of 8 noble aspects defining the Noble Eightfold Path. And the third one that is familiar in traditional language is something called wise action. And one of the things that we're doing in our community is we're sort of reimagining this language, this traditional language. And my motivation for doing that for me and my practice is to make these ancient practices and principles relevant and reflective of me as a contemporary human being. And so when I think about wise action and when I think about Eastern principles and philosophy, I know that my wise actions have to include the positive actions that I take, the negative actions that I take. The two together are what create the conditions for wisdom. And so what helps me remember that, because I have this habit energy of treating all of my unskillful actions as bad and therefore I'm bad, and all my positive actions as and skillful actions as good and therefore I'm good. And while that may be true, it is not the whole truth. Because my unskillful bad actions, if I'm paying attention and if I'm cultivating awareness, can be the very thing that leads me to shifting and maturing and leading me back to wise action, wisdom, compassion, joy. Things that make me act with more skill. Without making mistakes, I don't learn, I do not grow. And so if I'm focused on trying to not do anything bad and clinging to only good, I am just living the first noble truth. There is suffering. Because I'm entertaining aversion and attachment. It's so basic and so obvious in a way, isn't it? And yet we really have to take a minute to dissect and think about it. So yesterday, I brought forward in our practice a couple of concepts. The first was cultivating ego integrity and remembering that we all have a small self-ego, an immature ego that is comprised of archetypal types of things. You know, your little toddler that's still alive in you and part of you, your rebellious adolescent still alive in you, your developing young adult person still alive in you. All of those personalities contribute to the person you are and are becoming. And to develop ego integrity is to recognize when those personalities, when those archetypes are in the driver's seat of your life, causing you to react and contributing to the conditions of unskillfulness and misery. Easier said than done. And the second concept I spoke of yesterday was the stages of change. And there are 6. And how when we have a healthy ego, when we are maturing in our ego, the stages of change become easier. And you can Google the stages of change, and you can also listen to the recording from yesterday if you want to hear about it. And you can also read about it in the Sate Seva book. It's in the 13th chapter called The Mindfulness Practice of Encouragement. The point being that change takes time. And most human beings are incredibly impatient. We want what we want when we want it, which is right now. Hello, 3-year-old. Alive in me. I just want to get better now. I should be farther along than I am. Darn it, why am I not like them? Hello, 12-year-old, alive and well in me. And then the wise one in me is like, Julia, darling, where are you? How about we just come to this moment and see? Today, what I'd like to talk about and what I'd like to share with is tender. And it's the 6th stage of change, which is recurrence. And this is a tricky topic because there is excuse me, sorry, my computer is connected to my husband's telephone, so it was ringing. Recurrence in the history of recovery is really highlighted as the really bad thing, the thing you want to avoid at all costs, the thing that ruins your sobriety, thing that makes you go back to the beginning, and so on. And one of the things that we're endeavoring to do in this community using Buddhist practices and principles is reimagining all of that language, all of that narrative, so that we can take the stigma and the sting out of what is a very personal and complex journey. And that means we have to include and make space for recurrence. And so before I go on, I'd like to pause a moment. There is a person in the Spokane Sangha who actually never made it into the sanctuary. They made it to the door, they poked their head and looked into the sanctuary, but were never quite able to get their foot into that sacred space. And that individual has suffered deeply with very serious substance use disorder, lots and lots of recurrence. And that individual is now, has been arrested for horrific reasons. And that can happen sometimes. We have another Sangha member, a beloved Sangha member, who's been practicing with us for a long time. I have permission to share some of the details. I don't have direct permission from this individual to share their identity, so I'm going to keep their identity private. I hope you can respect that. That is something that we do in this community to extend a circle of trust, is we hold people's privacy very, very dear. But I have been asked to include community in sending metta, loving kindness, to a beloved Sangha member who had a recurrence, who was arrested, and is in jail, awaiting trial at the end of next month. I don't know any more details than that. It happens, doesn't it? And because recurrences happen, and they often have very severe consequences, it makes sense to me that one of the actions people take is to react in fear. Don't go back to habit energy. Whatever you do, don't drink, don't use, don't. You'll die, you'll ruin your life, and so forth. True, not the whole truth. It's fearful and not always helpful. Because the reality is, even with the fear tactics, even with the reality that negative consequences may occur, those little aspects of reality aren't always enough to bring people away from the edge of recurrence and back to the path of clarity. From a spiritual point of view, then, the practice is to make space for that reality in other people and in ourselves, and to use that as fodder for awareness, for understanding, for acceptance, for care. And that is in direct contradiction to the history of the recovery journey, because recurrences or relapses have always been touted as expressions of failure, weakness, and so forth. And we're here today using the practice of mindfulness and reflection to just question that. To just offer, is it even true? If I have a recurrence and I start calling myself a failure and I'm a loser and I can't believe I did this and I'm never going to get it right, and I just get harsher and harsher and my hand gets heavier and heavier and the whip strikes get stronger and stronger, is it helpful? Is it motivating in any way? And if it isn't, then it's time to put these weapons of violence down and cultivate space for something else. Today, I'd like to share with you an article that was from Psychology Today, and I'm going to have Lo post the link in the chat. It's written by a PhD, Patrick McElwain, and he talks about it's called the abstinence violation effect and overcoming it, and it's AV for short. And I have to tell you right away, I can't stand the language. Abstinence violence effect. I get it. And from a spiritual point of view, ouch, I don't want that language glaring me in the face. But nevertheless, let's talk about what it is. He writes, instead of viewing an incident of relapse as a temporary setback, and let me say that again, instead of viewing a recurrence as a temporary setback, a person perceives it as evidence of personal failure, leading to increased feelings of guilt, shame, and hopelessness. Now, in the West, there's a strong habit energy of dualism. So something is either this or it's that. So I'm feeling failure, I'm feeling guilt, shame, and hopelessness. And my immature ego says, you shouldn't be feeling those things, Julia. Those things are bad. Let's see if we can feel some other things. And that's just more dualism, friends. The spiritual practice is to go, hey, maybe my guilt is here to teach me something. Maybe my shame is here to teach me something. Maybe my hopelessness is here to teach me something. But let me be strong and bold and not wallow in those landscapes. I'm going to visit those landscapes. I'm going to pick up a little bit of wisdom and I'm going to carry on. I'm going to move on. This is what we do instead of going, I'm bad for feeling guilty. I need to get over my shame. It's bad that I feel hopeless. Because the reality is, I feel those things. And invalidating them doesn't help. But sitting with them without sinking into them does. Pema Chodron talks about working with difficult feelings, and she recommends that if it's new, if it's a new practice for you, you're only allowed to sit for 3 minutes. That's it. Put a timer. Think about guilt. Think about where it lives in your body. Think about a story you're telling yourself or a thought that keeps racing and repeating. 3 minutes, that's it. And then start to insert a companion, a sister, a brother, some other voice that says, wow, look at me. I just sat for 3 minutes with feelings of guilt. You know, that's amazing. I'm ashamed of this unskillful action. That's true. And may I use that feeling as motivation to do something different because I don't like this feeling. I don't want to feel this way anymore. 3 minutes, that's it. Hopelessness? What am I hoping for? Is it even realistic? The author writes, fostering compassionate self-dialogue is essential. So rather than labeling oneself as failure, weak, or a loser, providing a more balanced perspective is what we're going for. You may feel weak, you may feel like a loser, you may feel like a failure. That's okay. And you can even say, well, you know, that's true. I feel those things. And it's not the whole truth. What else is true? Both of these things can coexist. The author then writes about a couple of things that we can do when on the edge of a recurrence or having fallen over the edge into a recurrence and finding our way back. And he mentions things like cognitive behavioral therapy, developing coping strategies, learning tools of self-compassion, support groups, therapy. And he mentions something called RAP, R-A-P. Acronyms are helpful because they do help us remember things. AV, abstinence violation effect, AV. I don't have an acronym for that, but what I want to encourage in each of you is reimagine that language for yourself. You may like it. For me, the violence embedded into it is not helpful. So I have simply called it return to negative habit energy, wandering off the path, and the complex nature of a sober life. RAP stands for realistic, adaptive, positive. So the realistic thing is looking at the setback, recognizing that you don't lose any of your sobriety days, you don't start over, even though in traditional programming, that's what people were forced to do. You don't, realistically, you aren't. You aren't starting from square one. You're just starting from where you are. Adaptive is looking at the conditions that caused the craving, that caused you to get so close to the edge, that caused the falling into recurrence. And don't forget that in an adaptive mode, you're also cultivating awareness about how to get back. And the positive in RAP is simply that encouragement, that reinforcement. From a spiritual point of view, I reimagined that language. And I want to bring forward air. And that's what I'd like to practice today, just for a few minutes. Air, awareness. You know, I know, when I'm getting close to a return to habit energy, I feel it in my body. It's on my mind. Something is going on in the conditions of my life. I'm aware of it. I'm also aware of what's going to happen if I fall into a recurrence of something. My body's not going to feel good. My sleep's going to be disrupted. More than likely, I'm going to be cranky, blah, 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 for my particular habit. The awareness is everything. Without it, we're just reacting. Awareness might not be enough to stop the recurrence, but even going into the recurrence, you can maintain that awareness and easily come back. You don't have to get lost, but without it, you will. I will. I is an intention. And the intention is to just come back to why you're looking at your relationship to habit energy. And here's something that's important to say. People use substances to soothe, to numb, to avoid because it was effective at one time. It helped. And so sometimes people have recurrences because that's the only thing that they can think to do in a very stressful situation. That's the coping strategy they have. Is it skillful? No. Can they hold their intention? Can you hold your intention to get back and develop stronger alternative coping mechanisms? Yes. R is all about recentering. I have this awareness. I have an intention to support me and bring me back. And now I'm going to recenter myself and regroup. And I'm going to have new eyes. I'm going to have new things to work with. You may be someone that has to, before you can have sustained abstinence from your drug of choice, it might take you 12 times. Somebody else, it might take them 100 times. Somebody else, it might take them once. It doesn't matter. Your journey is your journey. And for that person who it only took one time, but their life is still in shambles. Yes, they've quit their substance. Yes, they're abstinent, but they're a mess. Whereas the person who's taken 100 times, all along, they've been healing not only the habit energy related to a substance, but the whole of their life. And they keep going. That keep going is an action of wisdom. And it allows us to extract strength and resilience from when things are going well. And it enables us to look deeply and gain insight and wisdom when things aren't going well. And together, this is what brings a softening, an opening, an accepting. This is what enables us to put the violence down in ourselves and become people who are encouraging, peaceful, hopeful, resilient. It's a practice. So let's just take a minute and breathe in air, awareness, intention, recentering. These are your tools whenever you're approaching the edge of a recurrence or if you happen to fall over. Breathing out the spirit of equanimity. Nothing in your life is worthless. Everything is there to use for your awakening to the preciousness of your life. Breathing in air, breathing out the preciousness of life. What a simple action. What a profound action, too. Thank you, friends. Cation of merit. There are so many social narratives going on, really dominating and dictating what recovery is or what recovery should be. And one of the things that the Buddha modeled for us is, I'm going to do it my way. And that takes extraordinary courage and presence of mind to do that. And we may not always have that kind of strength within us, and that's okay. But I think it's very important to look at our thoughts, question them. Why do I believe this? Where did it come from? And one of them that is quite pernicious in the realm of recovery is that to take a soft approach to our recovery encourages weakness. We don't want to coddle anyone. We don't want to be too nice because then they won't, get tough. We got to be tough in our love, right? Well, that's certainly one way to do it. In the Spokane Sangha, we believe in and we really cultivate the four limitless qualities. Loving kindness as a force, as a strength. Compassion as a force, as a strength. Joy as a reminder that your life is precious. And it's not about deserving happiness or deserving despair. Joy is about looking at both, always, so that when you reach the end of your life, you have a choice to either examine your ego integrity, the things you did well, the regrets you have, the fullness of your life, or to die in despair. Your choice, always. Joy is an extraordinary medicine. And we also cultivate in this community equanimity, which is inclusivity. We include all of it. And by including all of it, we take traditional ideas and we include them here as opportunities to question, to wonder, to be curious, to challenge, and to change if needed. It's bold. It's rare. It's unique. It's profoundly spiritual, and it's yours. You helped create this with me, and I am profoundly grateful. Let's dedicate this practice, this goodness, this merit, and let's spread it out. Let's radiate through every pore of your being to everyone who is currently incarcerated, to anyone who is on a psych hold in a hospital, to anyone who is institutionalized in any way, to anyone who is sick and lost and on the streets, to all those who are struggling today with their habit energy, and to the light bearers, may they continue to be strong, you and me. I wish for you a beautiful Friday, a beautiful day. Celebrate your life in health, in wellness, in joy. Namaste.